Hey Cal fans, and welcome to another week of the football film study on California Golden Blogs, where this week we're looking at some of the offensive stagnation that we saw in the North Texas game. Let's start with the run game. Our offensive line's taken a lot of flack this season, and as I showed in the Davis breakdown, some of it's definitely deserved, but in this game most of the runs that were called were going to be tough no matter what the offensive line did. To see this, let's take a look at this failed zone run on 2nd and 2. As we roll the play forward, we see that the offensive line lets this middle linebacker into the backfield completely unblocked. Now, the broadcasters often attributed this kind of thing to our offensive line being confused by North Texas's 3-3-5 defense, but there's actually a much simpler explanation here. In this shot, we can see all 22 players on the field. If we take time to count all the players that are in the box, we see the Cal has 5 offensive linemen and a tight end, giving them 6 blockers. North Texas is then matching that by playing with 8 guys within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, and really confusion's got nothing to do with it when the defense has 2 more guys than you can possibly block. Now, to be sure, there are absolutely different things that these blockers could have done within this zone scheme, but none of those things would have let 6 guys block 7 or 8 defenders. Play calling is the only thing that can fix this particular problem. With those few things said about the run game, we're now ready to move into the passing game proper. On this play, we see a good example of UNT's coverage strategy and of the way that Cal wanted to attack it. When Cal played with 2 wide receivers to a side like this, North Texas was generally playing an aggressive quarters look against it. On this play, for example, we see split safeties with the cornerback and safety at the top of the screen playing at only 6 or 7 yards deep. Now, when a defense plays with split safeties like this, the concern for the defense is that there's no defender in the middle of the field, and so they need to keep receivers out of that area. To do this, these safeties are going to want to line up inside of their wide receivers so that they can cut off any inside breaking routes. To attack this technique, Cal's running something called a slot fade. On this concept, the outside receiver is going to run a speed out, and the slot receiver is going to run a fade behind him. If the cornerback syncs with the slot receiver, then the quarterback will come back and hit the out underneath of him. If the cornerback instead sits on the out, then the quarterback will have room for the fade, where he's going to have a ton of space to work with in between the safety and the sidelines. On this specific play, the cornerback's going to hesitate, and so the quarterback's going to throw behind him, drawing a PI penalty. Against North Texas, we really hammered away at this basic strategy for much of the game, and it did produce a few nice gains, but overall it wasn't very successful. One reason for this was related to our quarterback's reads. On this play, for example, the quarterback should be reading the cornerback here to see if he stays with the short route by the outside receiver or if he syncs with the slot. Now let's roll the play forward here and stop it right now. We've talked about how this read should work, and so now you tell me, who should Garbers throw it to? If you said that he should hit the outside receiver for the easy first down, then I'd agree with you, but let's see what actually happened. I've heard some comments that our quarterback's being coached to play conservatively and to limit turnovers, but I think that the only way to interpret this play is to assume that Garbers is looking for the touchdown at the expense of the easy underneath completion. Now, at least he's not forcing the ball to a deep bracketed receiver here, but he's not really completing the read either. For some reason, when that deep option gets taken away, he's not able to come back underneath to the second part of his read. If you're not throwing the short route on this concept, then you can't punish that cornerback for syncing with the slot receiver, and so the deep option's never going to open up either. As I said before, though, we ran this concept a ton in this game, and on other plays there were schematic reasons not to throw that underneath route. For most of this game, North Texas was rushing 3 and dropping 8 into coverage, and on this play we'll see a concept related to the one that we've been discussing, but watch at the top of the screen as this outside linebacker drops to the flat to get underneath any short route by that outside receiver. Similarly, at the bottom of the screen, we can see that they're dropping another defender inside of the slant by this outside receiver. When the defense is able to drop defenders underneath these routes, then the cornerbacks are going to be free to sync with the slot receivers, and so both deep receivers here are going to end up with an inside-outside bracket by the cornerback and the safety. There's not going to be a lot open on this play. Throughout the first 3 quarters, we didn't try too much else. There were some variations, and a couple of them actually were completed, but we didn't have any other cohesive strategy aside from this one. In the fourth quarter, as the game got closer, we did open up the playbook a little bit, and we did several different things. And to give you a taste for that, let's check out this play. On this play, North Texas is running a really common 3-3-5 coverage, which is basically a nickel version of the Tampa 2. So this is a 2-deep coverage where these guys are going to drop to be deep half players, and then this safety is going to sit in the hole between them and the intermediate middle of the field. This play is designed to get this middle receiver open in the middle of the field, and it's going to do this by running the inside receiver here through the middle, drawing the coverage of that middle safety. The middle receiver here is then going to run a dig route into the void created by that route. We can see here that the second that this linebacker widens off the hash, Garbers is ready to pull the trigger and hit that lane, but as we've seen so many times this season, the ball gets tipped at the line of scrimmage. Although we didn't execute here, I do find it encouraging that we had this play in the game plan. North Texas ran this coverage a lot, and seeing us run this play shows us that we'd at least scouted it and game planned for it with a concept that had strong X's and O's and that could attack a different part of the field from the sidelines that we attacked for most of the game. It does look like we shrank the playbook a little bit when we got an early lead and then opened things up a little bit in the fourth quarter, and that was true in the run game as well as in the passing game. I do think that there's hope, therefore, that we'll see a more diverse offense in closer games, but whether we can execute it or not will be an entirely different story. Alright, that's it for this week. For more Pac-12 football analysis, check out patreon.com/Burke18, and otherwise, I'll see you here next week. Go Bears!